When we broke for tea, Commissioner Spies, we're dealing with the document, operational plan at page 24.4 in particular, and we had dealt with what the plan claims, what services the plan claims CAT VIP protection would be providing, which is ensuring the safety of principals, and on the other hand, the EMPD, together with Kyalami Security Services, confined to the protection of property and access control. You recall that?
Correct, Commissioner.
May I then turn your attention to page 24.14 of the same document? And I am interested in item 19 under the heading financial implication. Do you see that?
Correct, Commissioners.
And I note there that this exercise, or should I say the plan for the day, is costed at some region of 301,000. It strikes me that that total appears to be a part of it, different from the rest of the other amounts. Is there something to be made of that, or am I making too much of nothing?
Commissioners, it's maybe just again a glitch, but that includes, and it's standard practice that we...
sorry, Commissioner, my question is, I don't know if the same on your copy, the color does not appear to be the same at the total line, the 301,000, and the rest, the sum does not appear to be in alignment, unless it's my copy only.
Commissioners, it's the same on mine, but I just wanted to explain the table and the financial implications.
I'll get to that.
It is definitely different, where it's as if it was skew on the page and it was photocopied, and it happened during the photocopy. Okay. The only way that I could confirm now if that is still like that on the original is if we actually submit the original plan, which is very difficult to source because it was forcefully taken away from us.
But taken away from you by who?
The city manager instructed Commissioner Mapie that the complete internal affairs dossier must be handed over to the head of legal, Kemi Bihari. So he had a meeting with her, she gave him this instruction, and he then gave a written instruction to, or not a written, he informed Colonel Erasmus that the complete dossier with all the evidence must be handed over to Kemi Bihari. And Colonel Erasmus then had an accompanying cover letter from the Chief of Police to Kemi Bihari to say, as per our discussion yesterday, herewith is the dossier. Okay.
So are you suggesting that the original document this we'll find in the dossier that was subsequently handed over to Advocate Kemi Bihari?
Correct.
Okay, we'll pursue that. You wanted to talk about the actual costing then. You may do so.
Correct, Commissioners. For every operation that we do, we obviously have to provide the financial implication that operations will cost us for reporting purposes and also for budgetary purposes. So the table that is listed there lists then, for instance, the going rate at that stage of the staff that will be deployed and the vehicles that will be deployed as per published tariffs and everything. However, none of that will include or is including the falseness of CAT VIP that support us. So if there was support from them, vehicles or water or anything provided from them as resources, we would also list to say that these are the resources that is being used for them. It becomes massively critical, as you would obviously know from previous operations that went skew, and there's commissions of inquiry into those operations, is that every single thing at that operation must be listed. What's going to be used, what is used, if there was ammunition used, if there was firearms used, everything has to be listed in the operational plan.
Unless it was a donation, but it would have no cost implications to the metro if it was a donation.
If there was a donation, Commissioner, then the subsequent MOU, or in terms of what the donation is, there must be a formal declaration of this was received and this was accepted as a donation. Donations, you cannot just take donations. You have to formally accept donations and manage formally donations. We live in a government environment which is highly regulated.
So are you suggesting, and should I understand you to mean, that somewhere in this plan there should have been a portion as regarding the costing of the CAT VIP services? And if it's a donation, then it would indicate that there are no cost implications for the EMPD, or that the cost is recoverable from the EMPD. Am I understanding you correctly?
Correct, Commissioner.
Thank you.
I'm looking at, or rather, against vehicles and below that armored vehicle. I see that above those, the number of hours are indicated, but against these two items, vehicles and armored vehicle, no hours are indicated. I know it's not your document. Weren't hours supposed to be indicated there as well? In fact,
correct, Commissioner. It's correct that next to the armored vehicle and the water cannon there is no rate per hour and number of vehicles. The reason for that is that the water cannon and the armored vehicle, all our specialized vehicles, doesn't have tariffs published for them to be used because they are deployed at specific scenes, and it's never used as a vehicle doing normal performance. They are specialized vehicles and they're used per situation. So they're not published, but normal vehicles have tariffs related to them. And it comes closer to when the public, for instance, wants to make use of our services, for instance, an escort for a funeral or a sports event where we will provide traffic control. The sports organizer have to pay for the services, and that cost is then for the vehicle that's going to be deployed and the officers that will be there per hour. However, the specialized services, the armored troop carriers or the water cannon, that is not costed because we do not rent that out for services to the public that we provide to them.
can you explain then how the three figures in respect of those three vehicles are arrived at? The 36,850 rand, the 1,100 rand, the 550 rand. If you don't have, for example, an hourly rate, how do you get to those figures on the extreme right?
The 550 is the rate per normal hour. So they most probably, they're sloppy or doesn't know how to type it, but it is 67 vehicles with time 550. And I really hope that would come to 36,850. My math is not that quick.
All right, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. That then should bring us to the conclusion of your comments on this document. Is there anything perhaps that we may have overlooked you want to draw the Commissioner's attention to?
Maybe before you do that, Commissioner Spears, let me just clarify two questions. The one at 24, in fact, it starts at page 24.3, and it is under the heading activities, somewhere in the middle of the page. You see that?
24.3, 1.1 activities.
Yeah.
Correct, Commissioner.
Yes, and then it's a repeated 1.1. The first 1.1 is orientation in capital letters, and then there's another 1.1, which is activities, and then 111 before. The second entry, it says order of proceedings, that's a heading. And then the two entries there. The one is on-duty parade and briefing by operational commanders. And then the second one is deployment at ORTGP, and the initial point as well as all identified key points. This second part is repeated where it says deployment at ORTGP. in some form. If you go to 2410, and then you've got 10.2, and then you've got 11, which is coordination in the middle of the page. You see that?
Correct, Commissioner.
And then it says parade of members at ORTGP at 600 at 6 hours in the morning. And then a clear line of command and control should be established. All commanders. The security companies, CAT VIP and the Kyalami that you say is one of the appointed security companies, am I correct that they would have been at these briefings in the morning if they are part of the operation? They should have been there.
Correct, Commissioner.
Okay. And there would be a record somewhere of who was present in the morning at the parade. So if CAT VIP were there, the record of this deployment in the morning would reflect the participants in that.
Correct, Commissioner. If there should have been a parade, and at the parade people would sign on, and there would be occurrence book entries, and everyone that signed on would then be mentioned in the occurrence books.
So somewhere there must be a record of this in the
Correct,
city.
Commissioner.
All right. Now, the preceding this plan, this if we take it at face value, it is the plan that was approved. Before this plan is finalized and approved, what would have been the process and who would have participated in the discussions? I'm assuming there are meetings where stakeholders or role players, different role players are present, and which culminates in this plan. If I'm correct in that, who would have participated? And maybe just explain how it works, in fact.
Commissioner, because it is a State of the City address, the responsibility would fall in the division operations and specialized services, and specifically in the directorate or the specialized services section. They would be overall, because it is dealing with the security at the OR, and the name is for the Germiston Administrative Head Office of City of Ekurhuleni as OR Tambo Administrative Precinct. So that is where the ORTGP comes from. It's the Germiston Head Office where the city's head office is. There would be, before that, there need to be a formal plan. It need to go through the SAS-RIA process, the Sports and Recreation Act that prescribe for any event that is being held. So it would go through a SAS-RIA process where the unit responsible for it will design the plan, call a meeting with SAS-RIA, and then present the operational plan to them, which will then be approved by them that it complies with the SAS-RIA Act. And then it will go from that unit. Now, in this case, from the signature basis, it was drafted or signed first as recommended as then Lieutenant Colonel Kimba, Kebesile Kimba. She would have signed off as that, and then it will go to the director, which is Brigadier Mkhwanazi. It will then go to his divisional head, which is Deputy Chief Goodman Mazolo, and then ultimately the chief would sign off it. The moment the chief have signed off that it is an approved plan, it went through all the structures, it will then go back to the unit to be kept on at the JOC, which is the Joint Operations Center at the venue itself where the event is. It will be kept at the JOC as approval so they can, from this plan, record and make everything in the OBs as it happens. And then after the JOC and the event is finished, there will be a debriefing session where these documents and the OBs will then be archived and stored at the unit itself. So it will be at the specialized services region where the documents will be stored.
Yes, I think more particularly what I'm asking is CAT VIP and the other security company, would they have had to be part of the discussion which sets out what their role is going to be? I mean, I can't imagine that the city would simply go ahead and assign functions and roles to them without them having been part of a discussion that determines and agrees on their role.
I don't know about the CAT VIP side of it, but the Kyalami security is the security that's deployed at the ORT administrative precinct, the council chambers and everything. So they are the security, private security company doing the guarding there. They would do their normal day-to-day screening and access control portions. So they are included in the operational plan because they're already there and they're guarding the front door and the entrances and the exits. So there's no need to add anything extra to them. The only time that we will actually give extra information to them is if there's a genuine threat detected, that we will say, but here's a threat, close the doors, nothing else comes in, then they will be given direct instructions. But they will not really form part of being included in a pre-planning, except to say, this is the start times, this is the end times, this is the event that's going to take place.
All right. And then lastly, you, in that page 24.14, you were looking at the financial implications. There doesn't seem, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there doesn't seem to be any financial implication that is attributed to CAT VIP.
No, Commissioner, there's nothing there. That is purely our own. It's as if no one else was with us that day. That is our cost as the city of Ekurhuleni.
And if CAT VIP were present on that day, then it would mean, because they're not reflected here, it would mean it was a donation.
Correct, Commissioner.
And you're saying the city manager would have had to have approved it.
Correct, Commissioner.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Spies, we now, this then takes us to your paragraph 26. You have indicated that that's what you did, where you reflect that you contacted Lieutenant Colonel Erasmus and you provided him with the operational plan and instructed him to place it in an envelope to preserve any potential forensic detail.
Correct, Commissioner.
That then will bring us to your next main chapter, which you had referral to the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, IPID. You deal with these matters from your paragraph 27. May I request you to take the commissioners from paragraph 27 to paragraph 33 in the best manner you deem appropriate, whether it is to summarize or read what's stated there, or both summary and direct reading from the statement.
Okay. Obviously, this matter has now been investigated by Colonel Erasmus, and a lot of the evidence and everything was concluded. The Chief of Police, Commissioner Mkhwanazi, has already submitted a letter. He was already back at work then, because I was only the acting chief till the 1st of February. And he submitted a request and the dossier portion that we had at that stage to Hlongwane and Nisa, who was the divisional head employer relations, so that the request was that Brigadier Mkhwanazi must be suspended because he could still interfere with all the evidence that is at work. And then in the beginning of March, Chief Mkhwanazi instructed me where he has had a meeting with IPID, the executive director of IPID, Mrs. Jennifer Nklaseng, and there was a meeting set up between IPID and us at the Roodepoort Police Station boardroom in Florida on the 6th of March, which we then attended that meeting, obviously from my side, as instruction from my Chief of Police. But we traveled together, Colonel Erasmus and myself, with my private vehicle so that we don't leave a footprint because we're going to meet IPID. And we then met IPID, and people present at that meeting were, as I stated already, the Executive Director, Commissioner Mkhwanazi, Colonel Erasmus, and I. But from IPID themselves, there were a senior investigator, lady with the name of Nomsa Masuku, and then also an investigator with the name of Tulani Magagula. And we then, in this meeting, from our side, we discussed the matter with them, because in terms of the IPID Act at that stage, there's a section where all crime must be reported, where policemen is involved, crime must be reported to IPID. But the Act was at that stage still reading that the South African Police Services must report crimes to them. It excluded, in the Act itself, it excluded municipal police services. But because of this anomaly, all the municipal police services in the country has signed a MOU with IPID, including SAPS, to say that we abide by the same Act until the Act is amended, which has actually happened this year. The Act started to be amended to include municipal police services now as well in that matter. It was just an oversight in legislation for that period, but there was a MOU that we will comply in the same manner to the same act as the South African Police Service. So we then obviously try to report it to IPOD to say, here's a serious matter that we cannot investigate from ourselves because we don't have the investigative powers, and the more we scratch on this, the more things comes out. And that was the concept behind that we meet with them. And then while we sit there and we explain all of this to them.
Apologies, Commissioner. Before you do so, importantly, can you please deal with paragraphs 29 and 30 specifically? Because the two paragraphs frame the conversation EMPD was about to have with IPID.
So paragraph 29 is we detailed our concerns regarding the false registration of vehicles in the Metro Police's name and the use of these vehicles by civilians with blue lights, and then allegations of civilians impersonating municipal police officers. So that's why we requested them, because from our evidence so far, that's what we can deduct is busy happening. And we obviously then have to report it to the police, but because this is a policeman involved, we reported then to IPOD to investigate everything that we do wrong. And we also explained to them, and it's still valid to date, is that we as a municipal police service don't have criminal investigative powers at all. So we can investigate a misconduct. We can do inquiry into misconduct, but we cannot do criminal investigations. And this is criminal. And therefore, we have to report it to SAPS and hand it over to them. The inspector, after we presented our case, of what we have, inspector, or I say now inspector, but I don't know his real title, Mr. Makagula, who's the investigator for IPID, he started to tell us of, but they are already investigating the same group of officers. And we're like, what group of officers? And he mentioned their names then, and all the crimes that is there. Now, at this meeting, I took notes of that. And my notes, as I keep the notes, my notes is in my statement as well, and we'll get most probably now to my notes. But as I took the notes, it's what they're saying to me. So it's not that I have the real facts at that moment. I just took notes of it. And it just became worse and worse because they were mentioning cobalt theft. They were mentioning murder, that these officers, and we're like, what officers? We are speaking here about one officer who is committing a crime, and now suddenly you make it as if it's a whole group of officers that is busy there. And it is a really bad situation where what they explained is that there's a group of officers within the Specialized Services section that works directly under Dion Singh, who's now been promoted to a brigadier last year by Mkhwanazi, and Mkhwanazi running the scene. There's officers that is in that team that they operate on a modus operandi where there would be truck hijackings, and then this group will always find the horse, the front of the truck. They will find the horse back and it will be a very good success, but the freight or the load and the trailer will always be missing. And he then went through that list to say, but there's a modus operandi where a group of police officers will then take the load and offer it back to the owner via burner phones, and they will actually offer this back and then get paid, and then the owner will receive a PIN and he will get his load and things back. So they were explaining all of these crimes to us. And then at the end of this meeting, when all the crimes has been explained to us, we were instructed by the executive director, Ma'am Jennifer Tlatsing, to say that the very next day we must hand over all our evidence that we have in our internal dossiers about any of these matters, if it touch on that. We must hand it over to them the next morning so that they can properly investigate and carry forward with this.
Commissioner Spies, if I may, you deal with the list of cases that IPID brought to your being EMPD attention at that meeting of the 6th of March. You deal with, you've got a table there starting your page 11 after paragraph 33. I'm going to invite you to deal with each case individually, but before you do so, at paragraph, you must indicate whether any member of EMPD has been formally charged and appeared in court in respect of that crime, indicate the extent of their implication in that crime. And if they have appeared in court and been formally charged, you may mention their names. If they have not, kindly do not mention their names, and if you do not know what the actual status is, you shall equally so indicate. Is that okay? So then if we start at the table appearing at page 11, starting with under the heading case, what your table, perhaps to describe the table, you have numbered them, all of them, from 1 till 7 in that table. And then your second column is headed case, and this is where you identify the case. The third column is the details regarding the case number under which that case is registered. Then you provide the place. I take it the place is where the crime supposedly occurred. And then lastly, you give a description in the last column. So I would like you to follow a similar format where you identify the case with its case number, where it happened, and then you highlight what is set out under this description heading.
I will do so, Commissioners. It's just that my list is, as I list them here, it's not anymore in the order as they were presented by Magagula. It's a list that is made, and it's a living list in the sense that right up to now, every time I get anything new from any informant or anyone, I just add to that list to say, but this is new. One of the cases, I only got an update, for instance, this past Friday, but I will deal with that when I got the information.
Thank you.
The very first case that they mentioned was a incident that took place in Pitfontein. It's a truck with theft under false pretenses. The case number, it's a criminal archive system of SAPs that they're using. The case number is 86 of 2/2023, and it's a Pitfontein SAPs case, and IPIT is obviously investigating it, this Mr. Magagula. It happened on a plot in Marigold Street in Pitfontein. These officers arrived at the scene 11 o'clock the evening, and they contacted their supervisor, who arranged the driver for them, who only arrived the next morning. So during the whole night, they kept the truck and the owner very similar to, close to kidnapping, but they kept him in detention, which they're not allowed to do, but they were stationary with the truck and not allow anything to happen with the truck. The next morning, they actually, when the driver arrived that they've arranged, they took the truck and they drove off the plot with the pretense that the truck is not licensed and it doesn't have paperwork or anything, and they're going to impound the truck. And they follow a route, and in my head, obviously I know the area very well, but it's, if you're in Pitfontein area in Benoni, there's, from the plot, you go past the police station Pitfontein, and then if you carry on with that, you eventually get to the N12. Just off the N12 is the police vehicle impoundment. So you can either impound at Pitfontein, or you can impound at the vehicle theft unit pound. But they kept on driving past onto the N12 all the way towards Galuli's. The owner of this truck, and this is what Mr. Magagula informs us, the owner of this truck is following them with a dash cam all the way to Galuli's. At Galuli's, the officers switch on their blue lights and sirens, and they push in peak hour traffic through Galuli's, and the truck owner got stuck behind them. He couldn't go and follow them through Galuli's, and obviously he lost them. So that happened 11 o'clock the previous night to 8 o'clock the next morning, and then the truck is now gone. The very next day at 4 o'clock in the morning, the horse of this truck is handed in at Boksburg EMPD pound, found by this specific officer, recovered as a stolen recovered vehicle. The truck is driven into the pound, meaning that it's operational, the engine, everything is working, but there's no load. So no trailers whatsoever. The truck alone, the horse is driven in, and it's parked and booked into the pound legally as found back. However, the owner is then contacted to say, your truck's been found back, come look at it. And when you get there, the owner indicates that, but this truck can't drive as it is now because the gearbox controller has been removed. So the owner then alleged that the reason for that is that this is a brand new type of truck, that if you can reconstruct the movements from the gearbox controller if you are the owner or the manufacturer of the vehicle. But now the truck cannot move and drive at all. The controller of the truck was moved. But that's where that matter stopped. We provided the proof to IPIT the very next day of, here's the occurrence book, here's the pound register where the vehicle was booked in. You can see which officer signed in, you can see which officer actually found the vehicle back, which correlates directly back to the officer that was on the scene that reported the initial scene. And that case is to date not concluded that we know of at all.
Can I just inquire from you? You do indicate in your statement that certain members of EMPD are implicated in that crime. Do you know, one, whether any have been arrested, firstly, and secondly, if they have, whether they have appeared in court and been formally charged?
No, Commissioner. From this specific case, I do not know if any of them have been arrested or anything has been concluded on that matter at all. This already took place in February 2023. It was right then when we had the meeting, it was mentioned to us immediately as this is a new valid case that's running at the moment.
Thank you. Your next matter...
The next matter, this occurred, it wasn't presented at that meeting to us immediately, but it was because we then the next day had a meeting with Mr. Makagula where we hand over information on that. This came in that same month still, this complaint, and it came from him as well to inform us that there's an incident which took place in the Hillbrow, Kensington, Johannesburg area. But this is followed up at that moment in time. It was just informed from Mr. Makagula that this incident took place. We call it just the precious stones. But at a later stage, we received a notification from a lawyer firm that they intend to sue the city in a civil claim for the loss of this. And everything that Mr. Makagula told us is contained in this claim against the city for the loss of this. I think it is 45 million rand that was stolen. The complaint and from the claim itself, that claim was received. The sheriff of the court tried to serve it on me, and I then indicated to my office in Kempton Park, and I then indicated to the sheriff, but I'm not the correct person to serve documents on. You must serve it on either the chief of police or you must serve it on the city's head office in Germiston. And I redirected him then to where the chief of police office is. And he went and served it on the chief of police office. That I know has happened. And this is one of the matters where the chief of police took this claim and he went to the city manager. And this has been reported to the chief to me. When he took it to the city manager to say to her, here's a civil claim where the same group of officers are involved again, the city manager made it off as if the chief of police is directly going after Brigadier Mkhwanazi. And she lambasted him. That's what he informed me. She lambasted him and we should step out of this matter and not get involved into it at all. But from the claim itself, what I can deduce from that is that in the claim is that it was precious stones. And at that stage in my life, I only know that diamonds is precious stones. But this is sugolite, which looks like dirty rocks to me. But it's apparently a very expensive precious stone as well. And the owner of these rocks or precious stones was, what I understand, was in the process of exporting it out of the country, and he already had approval for that. And then our officers arrived on scene in uniform. What they did is, they went before that to the South African Police Service police station in the area. They signed on in the SAPS OB, and then from there, they took SAPS forms, a yellow form of how evidence get disposed of that have been impounded. They took that, go to this person, and then took the stones away from him as if it is he's in possession of precious stones that by law he may not be, and they're going to impound this. So they took this away from him. And then they gave him this form to say, but, you know, yes, your receipt and proof that we took it away. And when he went to complain to the police doesn't know about this at all. And then eventually the matter was escalated and reported to IPID. And when IPID saw his CCTV photos and video, they immediately can see it's the same officers that is from EMPD, and they linked them in that manner. And that case has criminally also not been resolved that I know of at all. And the civil claim side is that I just know that it's been handed over to the city manager, and then it went to Bihari. Thereafter, I don't know what happened with it at all.
Now, do you know if any arrests of EMPD members were made in respect of...
No arrest for this matter that I know of has been made. And they were at the scene itself on the photos. There were civilians, or a civilian, that later on, that civilian gets mentioned more and more because he's a civilian that he works and operates as if he's a Metro Police officer with them the whole time. But there was no arrest that I know of for this matter.
Okay.
Commissioner, you said IPID deals with criminal issues, but EMPD and by extension the municipality deals with HR issues. Were these officers ever suspended or subjected to any HR-related disciplinary process?
Not for this matter so far. Well, there is one matter where the very next one, but for these matters, nothing has been done yet to them.
And lastly, do you know whether or not these semi-precious stones were ever recovered, or you do not know any progress on
From my
that
knowledge
matter?
to date, it's never been recovered.
Thank you.
Commissioner, you in that explanation block, you say a female officer received a call whom she referred to as the boss, in quotes. The female officer took photos and then phoned the boss back again. She then said her boss arrived and parked on the wrong side with another lead to Killarney. Is that what Mr. Magagula told you?
That's correct.
Has been reported to him?
That's correct, Commissioner.
Okay. And then further on in that explanation, further down you say, and Magagula, in brackets, IPID. I don't know if you see where I am.
Correct.
He said he got his firearm licenses within 3 weeks. What is this about?
That civilian that he mentions there, which, because I can't mention his name because he hasn't been charged or anything of that, but the civilian who Magagula mentioned there is also owner of a private security company. And Magagula then mentioned and says, yes, even this person has the private security company. He's got contacts in SAPS because he gets his firearm licenses within 3 weeks. It's just something that Magagula said. I don't have any proof or anything to that matter.
And the city, and here specifically the EMPD, you and the chief, did not consider to lay a criminal complaint against the civilian that's named here for impersonating an EMPD officer.
Commissioner, at that stage we didn't have any evidence except that Mr. Magagula said to us. And when we requested the reverse, we will provide all our information. IPA didn't want to provide us with any information from their side at all, even though we requested them for information like this. And to our knowledge, the way it was conveyed to us is that IPA is already investigating this group, including the civilians, because it comes more and more out. There's stages where there's a group of about 5 to 6 civilians, of which one is my informant that was actually killed. It's a Mr. Hlongwane. He was in possession of a letter exactly the same as Mr. C.J. Smith in the beginning, a letter where he's appointed, or not appointed, where he's, to whom it may concern, this person collaborate with us and work with us. Mr. Hanekom had exactly the same letter. This person had exactly the same letter. So there was a group of people that were working with our officers in this whole scheme. It was a criminal enterprise running, and Mr. Magagula just mentioned it to him. When we asked him for, can we please have more information on this so that we can take disciplinary steps against our officers, he was saying, but they are imminent for arrest. We must wait on our side. We cannot, because we will damage their criminal cases that they're busy investigating against them. So we then had to hold back. That even include Brigadier Mkhwanazi's case, which he was suspended, he was supposed to be discipline steps. He was in the process already. The presiding and presenting officer was already appointed. When we then said, but the next moment is that Mr. Magagula and them say, but here's a serious murder case where he's implicated as accessory after the fact. And he helped clean up the scene in that matter as well. So we were holding back under the impression that it's a murder that already took place in 15 April 22. We were under the impression this is going to take place any moment now, because they would already have a lot of information if they can tell me that there's a murder case. And that's why IPA didn't want to give us really any physical information or anything back to us. They were investigating the docket, which we then had to obviously respect because they are the investigating officers in this matter.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Commissioner Baloyi. That then brings us to the third matter on your table. If you could deal with that. And once again, indicating whether or not there have been arrests and appearances in court and the like, because that determines whether or not you may disclose their identities. Thank you.
Commissioners, if I can just make sure, they were arrested, they did appear, they were out on bail. The case came many times, but last week, Thursday, I received notification that the matter has been provisionally withdrawn by
You are running ahead of us, Commissioners.
I just want to make sure before I mention their names that I don't get into trouble.
I think to the Chair, what you want to mention is they were arrested, specific members of the EMPD. They did appear in court, formally charged, and they were released on bail. And your question to the Chair is, in those circumstances, are you entitled to identify them?
Correct.
The answer is yes.
Okay. So it's an incident that happened in Benoni, and the business name is Smoke King Supermarket, where they were formally charged or criminally charged with theft, kidnapping, extortion, defeating the ends of justice. The case number was Benoni 215-07-2022. This dossier was initially investigated by the local detective, Sergeant Ben from Benoni. The docket was completed by her. It was already presented to the control prosecutor. Because policeman is involved, that the control prosecutor makes a determination if they must be arrested or not and notify the DPP. However, Mr. Makagula went to the control prosecutor and he took the docket away from the control prosecutor so that I could take the whole matter over. And then in this matter, Mr. Makagula contacted me on a specific Thursday afternoon, and he said to me that the very next morning he wants these 3 officers at my office. And I said to him, but they're not working for me. I'm not dealing with them. Their direct supervisor is this Dion Singh. Contact Dion Singh. He will arrange that you can meet them. And I've left the matter there. So the next morning, which is a Friday morning, I was in my office, in my boardroom. It's called Leopard Boardroom. So I was in my boardroom having my weekly meeting with my direct subordinates, discussing everything that happened during the week. And the next moment there was a knock on my boardroom, and the door was opened. And as it was opened, SAP's TRT members came into with fully armed balaclava, rifles, everything. So we are all police officers sitting in a room, which is a very tense situation where people is now actually invading inside the police station, inside my boardroom. And they went and stood at the corners. And then the next moment, Mr. Makagula came in carrying a docket with him. And then these 3 officers, Kershaw Lee, Stolz, Adrian McKenzie, and Bafana Twala, came in civilian clothes. They were from the specialized services. They sat down at the boardroom. And then in the passage, more TRT members stood in the passage protecting the boardroom. I then asked Mr. Makagula, what is this? What are you doing in my boardroom with these 3 members? And he then informed me that they actually contacted Dion Singh. They discussed it with him. He referred them back to me again, and that's why they came to my office, because they went to Mr. Mazolo's office, which is the Deputy Chief Operations. There's no one there, so they came to me to use my boardroom. And I then asked him if all my staff can be excused so that we don't intermingle stuff. So all my staff, except myself and Colonel Erasmus, who from Internal Affairs, stayed behind because he was reporting to me at that stage. And then Mr. Makagula proceeded to inform them of this case, and he arrested them in front of us, arrested them, took their cell phones away from them, took their appointment cards away from them. We had to wait for a few minutes so that I can arrange the armorer, which is the responsible person in terms of the Firearms Control Act, to actually come to my office to collect the firearms so that we can hand it to the armorer. And they even were followed by the TRT members to their vehicle to go fetch rifles, which they've left in the car, to fetch the rifles as well, to be handed over to the armorer. And that lasted for about an hour, hour and a half. Then they left, and obviously they're now being arrested by IPID, and they would appear in court, or they would be detained. On the Monday morning, I was sent a video clip from Benoni Court just to show that the officers appear in court, but they were denied bail because of court processes, and it was postponed to the next week for a bail application. And then at the next week, the week Friday thereafter, very early in the morning, they then got bail and they were released on bail.
Commissioner Spies, one thing we overlooked in respect of this matter is you didn't tell the commissioners what the matter is about.
It is, I thought I mentioned the headings, but what these officers did in effect, what was alleged by the victim, is that they entered his shop, which is in Benoni, diagonally across the fire station. They entered into his shop and they confiscated boxes and boxes of cigarettes, which they claimed he is illegally in possession with. And they then arrested him as well. So they took the boxes of cigarettes and him. They traveled down Pretoria Road towards the Benoni police station side. And when they got to the N12 in Benoni, where Pretoria Road and N12 intersect, they let this man out of the vehicle. They took his cell phone and 200 rand, and they told him to run away into the veld because he was a foreigner. I didn't know if he was legal or illegal, but he was a foreigner. And they then let him go. The specific Kersha Stolz then, she went to Benoni police station, where in the police station in the 13, which is the evidence register, she handed in one box of cigarettes. As if she, and her words were in that document where she handed in, it was picked up in the veld, and she collected it in the veld.
A box or a carton? One box of cigarettes or a carton? A carton. All right. Thank you. And you say they were then arrested. Do you know the status of that matter?
So, as I stated earlier, this matter, last week Thursday, I was informed that initially it was the person who informed me initially thought that the matter was completely withdrawn against them. But when I queried specifically with the control prosecutor, it's a matter of where it was numerous times postponed, and the last time the magistrate stated that he's going to withdraw the matter if it is not dealt with, and then the state prosecutor or the public prosecutor provisionally withdraw the matter because they couldn't find the victim and the complainant in the matter for the whole case matter. So it's as if the complainant is now either dead or gone or missing and he can't be found. So the matter was provisionally withdrawn by the prosecutor in April this year.
And this is after the matter was remanded how many times, do you recall, based on the knowledge you received from the prosecutor?
I can say numerous times. It's more than 10. There's a list of dates on the side of the charge sheet that you can see every time that it was postponed. There's a huge amount of dates that it was postponed every time.
You indicate that you acquired this information last week Thursday.
Correct.
Which was a preparation for your testimony here before the commission. Is there anything that was shared with you to substantiate what you are saying that you may want to share with the commission, any documentary evidence?
It was, I can share it. But it's obviously, I haven't printed it out. It's on my WhatsApps. It is a charge sheet that is attached to it. I think it's a J15, which is the official court document. It's the J14. And then for every charge that was like the kidnapping and the theft and the extortion, there was an annexure that lists, normally when it's presented to court, it's what the prosecutor would present when they are found guilty so that the magistrate can just sign it. It is the actual charges. And the versions I received is copies that was certified as true copies by the clerk of the court that made them. And then on the J14, which is normally the previous convictions of a person that would be read into court. On that J14, on the right-hand side, it states that provisionally withdrawn by the public prosecutor, and it is signed off by the clerk of the court as true copies of it. I have that.
Could you make that available to us, and commissioners will attach it to the statement? We will sort out the annexure numbering for its purpose, as it's a late submission. But we will update your statements and the files accordingly. Do you have a date? Do you recall the date on which the matter was withdrawn eventually?
It's April this year. I
April
don't have the
25.
exact date, but it is listed on the charge sheet itself on the right-hand side. The last date is mentioned.
Okay.
Are you moving?
Yes, Commissioner.
Are you moving to the next one?
I was about to.
Okay. On this one still, you, in your explanation column, the very last column, you've used the word, then they kidnapped the manager. And when you're testifying now, you said they arrested him. Is there a difference, and what's the significance of the difference?
Commissioner, when you do a legal arrest within the realms of the law, and you go and you arrest by law, and we cannot detain, we can arrest. So if we arrest, we must immediately hand over to SAPS as soon as possible, and SAPS will then detain. If the process is legal, then it is an arrest. If I act outside my scope of mandated and my powers and my functions, the member of the public will think he's being arrested, but I actually kidnap him in law because I'm acting illegally. Then it's not an arrest anymore. So when we speak between us, it was because he was illegally arrested. There was no reason to arrest him. He was then taken from his store where he's under the impression he's being arrested. From the other side, it is actually, and then they get to the highway and then they let him run away because he's a foreigner. That action is actually kidnapping. So the difference between is when you do it correctly and legally and you hand him over to SAPS and it goes through the papers, it is a legal arrest. However, when you take a person and he's under the impression he's being arrested and you do something to him, that is kidnapping, in my knowledge.
And then secondly, the arrest that happened in your boardroom by iPad, when was this? Do you have a recollection? When about, even if it's not exact?
It's in March. Let me just see when Hanekom was. It's 2 weeks before Hanekom was killed. I will look at it, Commissioner, but it is somewhere in March.
March 20?
23.
Okay. And after that arrest, what happened with these officers in the workplace? Did they remain at work?
They matter because when they were arrested, we obviously now have proper proof that there is a case against them. So internal dossier was investigated by Colonel Erasmus. It was presented to the division head of ER, Mr. Kolani and Nisa, and he then appointed a presiding and a presenting officer to start with the disciplinary matter. It only got to the very first day of the disciplinary matter. At that morning, I was there to actually start the testimony and everything, and when I arrived there, the matter was taken away. I don't know exactly how it was taken away, but the disciplinary process inside stopped completely. In May of that same year, the officers were on suspension for that period. And then at the end of their suspension, because normally the city will only suspend you for a 3-month period in terms of the disciplinary agreement. So at the end of that 3 months, when the officers returned to duty, there was an email discussion and correspondence from Commissioner Mazolo, who was their direct divisional head, the deputy chief. He sent an email to Brigadier Mkhwanazi and to state that the 3 officers will be deployed in my division, administratively, where they can be in the office environment so that they don't work as law enforcement officers. So, and I was CC'd in this correspondence. Kershaw Lee Stolz was placed at my Alberton Fine Administration Office, resorting under the command and control of Senior Clerk Veronica Brits, and Officer Mackenzie was placed at Nigel under Senior Clerk Juanita Marais, and Officer Twala was placed in Boksburg under the command of a Senior Clerk Patty Peterson. And the reason why they were placed at those specific places is to make sure that that is the closest to their residences, so that we don't have to provide transport or anything to them. So they were placed there. They stayed there for approximately a year, and then in 2024 November, the the staff started to complain. Right from the beginning, they were complaining about them because they incalcitrant, they don't listen, they don't do anything. So the officers were then, a request was made back to Commissioner Mazolo to say, can they please, to Mkhwanazi then, can they please be taken back from us that they don't, because they sit in an environment where they create issues. And then it was instructed, not to us, through us at all, because we're being sidelined, but the officer, like Mackenzie, just came to Mrs. Marais and said to her, I've been replaced and I moved to Loads. Here's a WhatsApp, I've been moved. And then she said, but I haven't received notification from Commissioner Spies. And he just says, well, here's a WhatsApp, I've been redeployed to Loads. Mrs. Stolz, she started, so this happened in May and June of that year. She then lodged a grievance against me, where she stated that I don't allow her to work overtime. Where at the back end we have a system in place where overtime is pre-approved at least a month before. So for this month I will pre-approve overtime for the next man. Depending on what you plan and motivate it, the overtime will be pre-approved. And the pre-approval for the Alberton section has already been concluded the previous month. She came in the middle of a month to our section. And then she submitted a grievance to say that she doesn't get overtime and I'm victimizing her because I was present during the arrest and I'm testifying against her and I'm victimizing her, and that's why I doesn't want to give her overtime. However, in the evidentiary proof, she sent a whole email to Linda Kacheka, which was the HOD HR, the city manager, Mkhwanazi, all of them, Mkhwanazi, where she stated that I'm victimizing her and she doesn't get overtime. We've replied to that where there's proof of that as well to say, but she can apply the next month in the motivation and she will be placed on overtime if it can be motivated for the next month. And then at the end of that month, July, she actually resigned out of her own free will and she left the force. She then, after she left the force, she then lodged a unfair dismissal through arbitration labor relations, and that was then concluded at about October, November, and it was found not in her favor, where there was no victimization or anything like that. So the two officers that stay behind, Twala and Mackenzie, to date, no disciplinary action has been taken against them at all.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Spies. That then brings us to the matter dealt with under item 4.
The item 4.1 is allegations of theft of copper at a plot in the Meyerton area. And this information was corroborated not only when IPID gave this information, but I also got from an informant, which is Jaco Hanekom. And he was shot the day Stolz, Mackenzie and Twala, the morning they got bail, that morning, that 12 o'clock that same day, Jaco Hanekom was shot in a drive-by shooting, which the police alleged is a hijacking that went wrong, but it looked to me and everyone on this, it looked like a hit. But he gave video clips and of what happened and took place. And there's a person with the name of Willem, that's a complainant close to the R29 in Meyerton. But it's also stated that Willem doesn't trust the police and he doesn't want to get involved because the local police also doesn't want to involve them. And in this video clip, and we most probably going to show the video clip, but the person who is speaking over the video clip, explaining what's happening on that is a civilian who is most probably family from Willem, but it's someone speaking there. And in that, when he speaks, he mentions the person's name, but just his name, not his surname or anything like that. But it's an incident where our officers, together with this civilian, arrive on scene with unmarked cars, and one car has got a mark on, and they stopped at the front gate. The civilian with a red shirt tries to climb over the fence. It's a very high fence. He tries to climb over the fence, and then eventually the gate is opened for him and all the vehicles drive in. The civilian climbs into the Kershaw-Lee stall. She's one of the officers. It's her patrol car that's been assigned to her. The civilian climbs in her patrol car and he drives the car into the premises, driving the police car. And then the cars are standing around there and they're accosting the owner and they're discussing with him they stole the copper and everything from him. That's what Mr. Makagula is saying. But then at this point where they're speaking about the last car that came in, they all went to the right rear passenger door of this car. And as they got there, the door opened and Mkhwanazi, the Brigadier Mkhwanazi at that stage, he climbs out of the right rear side as if he's being escorted or as if he's a principal VIP protection. He climbs out there and you can clearly see him on the video clip where he stands and talks to them and gives instructions to them. So that's a matter that's also being investigated by IPIT and Magagula and them, but which is not concluded to date. There's nothing, even internally, there's nothing that has happened with that matter.
Can you just confirm, Commissioner, Meyatin is also outside of Ekurhulene's jurisdiction?
That's correct, Commissioner.
My understanding is that in Midval, is it?
Correct, Commissioner.
And then your reference to R29, is it 29 or 59?
It's what I wrote there, it's R29 is as Mr. Makagula said it to me and I write it down. I don't know the exact address at all, but it is definitely in Meyerton and R29 was mentioned. I know the R59 goes through them on the side, but I don't know if it's the correct address or not.
But my issue remains that apart from the criminal activity, if you have EMPD police officers using EMPD vehicles, driving outside of the jurisdiction of EMPD, apart from criminal issues, I mean, isn't that misconduct that should result in them being subjected to discipline?
Correct, Commissioner.
And you being the deputy police chief at the time, one of the deputies, why did you not raise that issue internally to say, I know IPID has its own processes, NPA has its own processes, but if we allow EMPD officers to drive outside of jurisdiction and do things there which they should not be doing, that's a serious labor issue.
Commissioner, it was mentioned.
Can I just add also to what Commissioner Khumalo is raising, that the involvement of a civilian in an EMPD operation where they are even outside jurisdiction sounds to me would also be a disciplinary issue. And so when you answer, Commissioner Khumalo, taking to deal with this as well.
Commissioner, when we received this information on the 6th of March and we were discussing it, we also had, when we came back, we had a discussion where we had a meeting internally with Kolani and Nisa from HR to say that these are all the cases which is being mentioned. But for these matters, it was mentioned to us by Magagula, but we don't have evidence of that. We have video clips which doesn't really relate to it. So we don't have proper matters that we can put into a disciplinary matter. But when we discussed it, because Magagula and IPIT stated to us the day before that they are imminent, they're going to be arrested, and then these matters will come to the front. Internally, it was decided by HR that they only want to proceed with the one matter. And that one matter was the serious, the blue lights, where we have all the evidence already that we can proceed with a disciplinary matter. So from our side, we did give it to HR to say, but yes, serious matters. But the decision was made that we will deal with the one matter, which is very serious, and we have all the evidence. The others are proper hearsay. We cannot really deal with that at that stage in time.
Commissioner, my concern is that there are this many issues. You've only highlighted a few, but if internally EMPD does nothing about this, it promotes the culture that police officers, I mean, you've got a similar Hillbrow case where apart from whatever was stolen, EMPD officers went to Hillbrow police station, completed forms that should be completed by subs, then proceeded to the residence of somebody and robbed that person of precious stones. But again, no HR-related consequences. It's almost like EMPD and Ekurhuleni leave those issues to IPID. and they do nothing about it. And this promotes a culture within EMPD of impunity.
Commissioner, it's very true what you say, but the atmosphere and the environment where we operated, Brigadier Mkhwanazi and his unit, the VIP protection side, the specialized services, and all of those officers were very seriously protected by the city manager, by the head of legal, by the head of HR. There's even a nickname that we used to use for the city. It's not the city of Ekurhuleni, it's Kemashli, which is the abbreviation for Kemi Bihari, Imogen Mashazi, and Linda Kasheka. They protected Brigadier Mkhwanazi to the extent that I cannot explain to you the victimization even I experienced, where I was completely pushed out. In the structure itself, I was appointed as a Section 56 employee with a fixed term, fixed performance contract. However, in 2024, Council adopted a new structure which changed the whole structure of the Metro Police, that they report now to a civilian. They don't report as per SAPS Act anymore to the city manager and accountable to her. My position where I was appointed in, the Deputy Chief Auxiliary and Support Services, was completely removed of the structure. When I queried it with the HR people as to why would there not be a support and an auxiliary, how do you get rid of me? I'm still in the post. The words to that was directed at me was, you will sit here and read newspapers for the next 3 years till your contract ends. So there's and I touched later on it, there was even meetings held where the city manager absolutely unprofessionally pushed us aside and actually tries to forcibly interfere into our matters. They were properly protected. Doesn't matter what I say or do. I will touch on it. There will come to a point where it deals with vetting. It deals with criminal records, where the manner how it was being dealt with. So there's a situation of fear in the Metro Police against this small group of officers that has completely taken over the city, but with the protection of the city manager, the head of HR, the head of legal, who's protecting them. There's even false reports being generated and created where they try to push us and get us out of the system and to push us aside.
Thank you, Commissioner Khumalo. You then have given a brief overview of this Merton copper theft case. You have a date in the fourth column, 16/2022. Is that when it occurred?
That's the date that the original crime occurred.
You, in your testimony, referenced videos, which now you've made available to us. And once again, Commissioners, if you could just make a note for yourselves, we will update your files so that we formally introduce them as annexures to his statement. You gave us 3 short videos. And I think you have indicated the order in which you want them played. The first one is very short, so I think we'll allow it to play and then you'll explain to us what it is you perhaps at the beginning, explain to us what we'll be seeing, and that's how we will approach each one of them. Then we play the video.
The first very short one, it's a camera at this premises, which is at the outside gate. Where the for sale sign stands, on the right-hand side is the actual entrance to the property. The vehicle that approached there is our Metro Police vehicle. So it approached on the gravel road and it's going to turn to the left, stop in front of the gate. Then it will follow up with, you will see officers come out of the vehicle, 1 or 2 stays at the gate outside. They go stand at the gate armed. They're standing at the gate. They don't allow anyone else to come into the property. They're guarding from outside. And then on the next video clip, you will actually see a camera from inside pointing at the gate, where in the top left corner, the private individual with the red shirt is trying to climb over the fence. And then at the next moment, the gate will open. This vehicle in front of the gate will pull in, and then the second vehicle will also come a little bit later. And the female officer, Kershali Stolz, she's the one speaking to the owner then, this Oom Willem. And then it will go to the actual vehicle at the back where Mkhwanazi climbs out of the back of the vehicle and then they stand in a group and speak.
And as we go through it and you need us to stop, please indicate so that you can assess to the extent that it's possible to identify the people that we are seeing in any particular video. Okay, we're playing the first one.
Ja, tu meneer Zagaccio.
Okay, we're going to try and slow it down. It seemed to...
But it is only 7 seconds, Commissioner.
It is 7
It's just
seconds.
that portion where the car approached and it stops in front of the gate then.
And you confirm that this is, firstly, an EMPD vehicle?
Correct.
And secondly, the clip, what we are seeing on that clip is the approach of that vehicle onto the complainant's property. Okay, then you can play the next. We start the next clip.
Hierso by die.
Nou,
Nog 'n bietjie. Okay. Ja, dis reg gehad hom. Okay, we kom maar play. Kom net so los. Dit was 11:54. Ek gaan ook maar net so play. Dit is groot check hier so die inklim.
That
Ja,
is
maar het lyk
Etienne.
uit.
That's the Etienne person, the civilian climbing out of the passenger.
And you say that's an unmarked EMPD car
So
that is coming out
both
of.
vehicles is unmarked EMPD vehicles, and that civilian is the one that they will refer to as Etienne the whole time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Daar's Kersha. Ja, dis Kersha.
The officer on the bottom right-hand corner with the black hair, female officer, that's Kersha Lee Stolz. And then the officer, I don't know the other officers by name, but they are from the specialized services. The one with the denim on the left-hand side, I don't know his name, but he also works for us.
And you know that you don't know his name, you know he works for you. How? Have you seen him?
Because it's been confirmed by everyone that looks at this video. They know, the officers on the ground knows them. I just know that they say, this is our officer, this is our officer, and some you can see in uniform, it is our officer as well. This one in the red shirt is the only civilian one that we know that doesn't work for us.
Thank you.
Daar's Kersha. Ja, dis Kersha.
I don't know if we saw, you mentioned a lady. Is she the one closest to the gate in front of the gentleman in red?
Correct, Commissioner. She walks towards the camera, right next to the gate, but you will see a better angle of her when they go to the inside
Okay.
camera.
All right, thank you.
It's 11:54.
As jy nou gereed koop.
If we may pause. Can you identify the person on the screen now?
That's also one of our officers dressed in a golf shirt, but with our cap, EMPD cap, and then the EMPD pants and a rifle and everything. I also don't know his name, but the officers know him, that he's from Specialized Services.
Okay, thank you.
That officer stay the whole side, the whole period. He stays at that corner of the gate, protecting in and out.
This particular...
That particular officer, he doesn't
Okay.
come into the premises. He stays at that gate, guarding the gate.
Okay.
Before we proceed, the visuals, the facial visuals here of this officer in particular, it's not very clear, but from what you have viewed, and you say he's identified as one of your officers, are his facial features clear enough to see who it is?
Commissioner, it's what we do with the officers. It's because we know we work together with them. For instance, Officer Stolz, there's in the Metro Police in Ekurhuleni, there's only 5 white female officers, and there's always a misunderstanding between my wife or my life partner and Officer Stolz because both has got long hair, black hair, and both is about the same height. So there's always confusion about that, and therefore I can immediately, when I see them, I know the difference between my wife and
We hope.
Constable Stolz.
We would hope, Commissioner.
So even in the way she walk, and Officer Stolz, I know her much better than the rest because I was in charge of the Ekurhuleni shooting team for Metro Police games and things like that, and she was one of my members on my shooting team. So I know her better than what I would know all the other officers that is in Specialized Services because she was on my shooting team for close to 4 or 5 years. And then the resemblance to my wife where she gets confused. The only difference really when you see quickly is that people will confuse them, but we won't because she's got tattoos tribal tattoos all over her arms and her face, where my wife doesn't have tribal tattoos.
And this officer here, your people were able to identify him.
Yes.
And put a name to him and where he's...
Yes, Commissioner, from the team, they can immediately say, but this is an officer that worked together with him, and based on his demeanor, his walk, and the way he looks and his face, we can identify officers because we work together with him. But I cannot because I'm at the management level and I very seldom see the operational officers in that manner.
I understand. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Baloy. We continue with the tape.
Nou, die ander ene wat heel eers die afgestaan het, was hy gesê, hy is er gedien. Okay.
And I think we will also do it formally. But are you able for the moment to translate the conversation in Afrikaans, just to give everyone a sense of what's being said?
I can, Commissioners, I just haven't listened to that last words, but
No, but just generally what the conversation is about and from your understanding between who?
The person that's doing the speaking here is asking someone else, is this the Brigadier? And his answer was, no, you'll see him later, he's in another car. That's the gist of what's happening here.
Okay. And do you know who's speaking?
No, I don't know who's speaking. I received this video clips from Jaco Hanekom. I don't know who is speaking. From the discussion, when Jaco Hanekom discussed it with me, when he introduced this evidence to me and he says, this is what he has seen, he stated that they actually came back to remove the evidence. But when Willem's son or someone has actually took out the hard drive, put in a brand new hard drive, and they came and fetched the brand new hard drive. So it was a joke actually how they operated, because this incident took place, but when it was reported by Willem, and this comes from Jaco Hanekom now, is that when it was reported by Willem to the police, This group came back the next week to retrieve the hard drive from him. But they retrieved the wrong hard drive. And so the people who's speaking, I don't know. I know that one is Willem, because you can hear that he's asking the person who is this and what happened, and then the or the uncle is busy explaining back to them who it is.
Thank you.
Just to be clear, Commissioner, the voices that we are hearing, that you're being asked about, these are not people on the scene at the time.
No, Commissioner.
Okay.
It's people who's narrating what happens afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
Start trek hulle in.
He's pulling in,
Hier kom die ander ene.
and then the second car is coming in as well.
Ons gaan hom nou stop en dan kan ons gou die binnenkantste kamera vat.
We're going to stop and then show the inside camera.
Nou die oogie toe, die oogie dan.
Yes, he's closing on that. We actually walked up and I told him to put the board in front. He doesn't have to stay there.
So daar is hulle klaar binne.
Before it ended, the gentleman in blue and a cap, is that a rifle in his hands that he's got?
Correct, Commissioner.
Okay. Yes, there it is. Okay? And you say this gentleman stayed at the gate and never moved?
He stayed at the
according to
gate, he
these
didn't
clips.
come on. Even from the other camera angle, you will be able to see that he stayed at the gate. But there's two officers that stay at the gate. The other officer that earlier was sawn with a denim and that, you also don't see him inside again. So that officer you can see stay at the gate, but the other officer, I make an assumption that he went to the other side of the gate and he stood there at the outside of the gate.
Okay.
You said, Commissioner, that golf shirt that he's wearing, it's part of your uniform.
It's not part of our official uniform at all. So the pants and the rifle and the cap is our uniform, and we have a blue shirt. That is normal part of us. But the specialized services, they would use out of their own, on most probably direction of their brigadier, they will use a blue golf shirt, but it's not provided uniform, that shirt itself.
Can we just go back? I thought I saw that at the back, it's written EMPD. Am I wrong in my observation?
At the back of the shirt.
Yeah.
It would be embroidered by themselves.
Okay. I think you can stop. I think it's much. And you're saying it wouldn't be issued uniform if it is?
No,
if
that's
my
not
observation is
issued
correct.
uniform. The shirt is not issued.
If you would pause.
We have tried to pause it as quickly as we could. That's when he turns his back to the camera. Sorry, we tried to stop it as quickly as we could because that's the point at which he turns his back to the camera. And Commissioner Baloyi, is it at this point?
Yes.
What can you make out?
It is definitely embroidered letters which states EMPD.
Okay.
Thank you.
But it is not an official shirt. It's not part of the schedule. It's not issued by the stores of EMPD at all.
Thank you. That then what leads us to video 3. Okay.
So it starts off with the person in Etienne at the wall itself, trying to climb over the wall. He's hanging there on the top, in the middle.
Daar klim jy op die muur, op die ding daarso. Daarso. En dan gaan jy uitloop.
So he's a civilian now. He climbs into the vehicle, and the police vehicle, and he's driving the police vehicle into the premises.
Is this the vehicle that you said was Stolz's?
It's Stolz's official vehicle that's been assigned to her.
Kom hom hulle uit.
Stolz is the lady that walks now here in the front.
Shut up.
Sorry, please say that again.
Stolz, the lady walking towards Oom Willem now, that is Kershaw Lee Stolz.
Then a member of the EMPD.
She was a member of the EMPD till she resigned.
Okay.
And then the individual with his back to us is the one I assume is Oom Willem, because they speak about him and that he's the one being accosted on the premises.
Okay.
I was hoping, Commissioner, that you would not identify the occupants of the property.
Sorry,
Because in your statement you mentioned that the whistleblower that provided you the tape was killed shortly after these officers were granted bail.
That's
So
correct,
I think
Commissioner.
just for the safety of the individuals, can we not mention their names, please? Is that in order?
Commissioner Khumalo is pointing out, and I think you had indicated at the start of your testimony in respect of this matter, that the complainant expressed that he doesn't have a trust of the police and didn't want to engage. And in light of your testimony that your informant, Hanegom, was killed shortly after they were granted bail, that perhaps it might be best not to say as little as possible about the identity of the people affected by this operation.
Sorry, Commissioner.
Thank you.
18 in die kar. Al vra sy vir die warehouse, al wys oor vir hulle die warehouse toe.
She asked, where's the warehouse? And then the person showed her towards where the warehouse is.
Het hy gesê hy is die brigadier hierdie ou? Nee, sit hy nog in die kar?
So they ask if that person indicates he's the brigadier, and then he says no, he's still sitting in the car at the back.
Now, coming in from the direction of the gate towards the camera, I think it's yet another person who seems to have a light-colored top. Is that an EMPD member or another civilian, or you don't know?
That's also an EMPD member,
Okay.
just in civilian clothes. That one on the right-hand side
Yes.
is an EMPD member in civilian clothes.
Okay.
Sê hy is die brigadier hierdie ou? Nee, sit hy nog in die kar? Okay, so hulle was dan, nou kyk, maar klim ek hier uit die kar uit. Hoe lang het jy al daar gestaan?
There they speak to the passenger in the back of the car. So Kershaw went to the passenger door at the back and she opened it, and the driver in the orange shirt, he climbed out and opened the door for her. And now Kershaw is speaking to the person in the back of the car, which when he climbs out, we can immediately recognize him, but it's Brigadier Mkhwanazi.
Now, the driver in the orange top that you just
He's
referenced,
also a member.
also a member of the MPD. Thank you.
And have you been able to identify this vehicle who it's allocated to?
The vehicle is also allocated to the specialized services, but we can identify them.
Who the driver was?
Yes.
Thank you.
Nou, praat hulle met hom agter in die kar. So hulle was 3 in die kar.
So the person that now climbed, you can see from the head and the side profile that we know him it's Brigadier Mkhwanazi.
Okay.
Want daar was 2 maniere waar jy maar die hele tyd waar jy bly staan.
So hulle was 4 in my kar. Hy loop daar, loop 2 daar na die warehouse se kant toe.
That's the end of tape 3.
Correct, Commissioner.
Any
Can we
Commissioner,
just
sorry.
confirm that property that we saw in tape 1, 2, and 3, that's the Mayerton property?
Correct, Commissioners.
Any concluding remarks on the videos we've just watched before we move to the next matter?
No, it's
Maybe
just that
before you do your conclusion, an operation such as this, you would expect, am I correct to assume or to expect that there would be a record of it? If it's a proper operation, there would be a record of it in the municipality or in the EMPD, in fact, let me say.
Commissioner, if it was a legal operation, but it's so far outside our area that we wouldn't, as management, you wouldn't allow it. If an officer comes to you and say, I have information of a crime going to take place in Soweto or in Mayerton, the first instructions will be take your information, hand it over to SAPS so that the SAPS can actually do a proper operation in that area. There's no going outside your area expose you to way more than just you acting outside your mandate. If you are injured there, your injury on duty doesn't cover anything. If anything happens there. So it should be, if there's an operation, there should be records of it, but this whole operation is irregular. And therefore, I don't think there's any proof in the city itself that there's records that this actually took place. This is a crime that's taking place, and there will not be records of crime kept.
In your narration, in that first column, you describe it as theft, copper, and we see that they're going into either business or private premises. Is this part of your mandate to go into premises and investigate copper theft? When I say your, I mean the EMPD's mandate.
We have in our powers that we can search and we can enter premises when crime and things happen right in front of us. However, when it comes down to copper, second-hand goods and things like that, we don't have investigative powers in that matter. We also don't have powers in terms of the Second-Hand Goods Act to enter a premises to search. It's one of the shortcomings that we as Metro Police have, that we think we have, and we have requested Minister Tino actually to give us those powers, that we have limited powers to investigate second-hand goods shops and that. What we do in practice is that we would contact the local SAPS and say, there's a second-hand goods store, they're selling copper, there's allegations for that, and then SAPS will go together with us, because SAPS have got the power to go into those premises. But we cannot go into that power. So we don't have powers in terms of the Second-Hand Goods Act. And if anything, if we receive information like that, the proper procedure would be that we ask the local SAPs to accompany us. So we just have a police officer there as well when we then search the property for copper and infrastructure or thefts related to Second-Hand Goods Act.
And what about the involvement of civilians in your operations, assuming this was a proper operation? What
Civilians will
comments
not,
you have?
you know, it's so strange. Civilians will not be allowed into operations, even as informants, because you protect your informants. You don't expose your informant. If it's a genuine case of theft of copper that you now illegally investigate because you have this false perception that you can investigate them, even if you enter that premises, then why would you take your civilian informant with you? Because you will expose him. So civilians. And we as police don't bring civilians together on our operations. It's unheard of that we actually do that.
And what about civilian use of your property, such as we see Mr. Van der Walt driving a motor vehicle of the EMPD? There must be rules about that.
It's illegal, firstly, in it. The very short answer is that's impersonation of a police officer. You're using resources belonging to the state, and that's seconds or moments while you're driving the car. You're driving a police car, so you're actually impersonating a police officer. And you can go, most probably, if there's real police on the scene, you can arrest him for theft. You can arrest him for use of your property. It is highly irregular that civilians, the only civilians I know of that drive our vehicles is the mechanic when we take it into the workshop, and even then it becomes problematic. We have established a whole unit, that the fleet unit, that makes sure that the mechanic doesn't, for instance, drive our vehicles into the public road distances. It's so that we use our own office to say, take it to the garage or take it to the workshop for repairs. It becomes highly problematic if civilians start to drive official police vehicles.
So in a normal working, functional and orderly work environment that the EMPD should have been, the involvement of a civilian such as Mr. Van der Walt in the operation and in driving the vehicle of the municipality, but also impersonating a police officer, that would have been disciplinable action against the officers that are involved with him. Am I correct?
It will be. It should be where you allow someone else to drive or operate the vehicle. So the officer who's responsible for the vehicle, in this case, for instance, Kershaw Lee Stalls, or the brigadier who's on the scene, he's an overall in command. It's a prosecutable or a disciplinary matter for using and allowing other people to use our resources.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr.
One last point, sorry. You're saying these officers, the EMPD officers, were arrested and charged with theft. So they were not just there to investigate. They were accused of stealing the copper.
Correct, Commissioner.
As a follow-up to the answer you gave to one of Commissioner Baloyi's questions, this is the information you received from Mr. Magagula, the IPT investigator, at the meeting of the 6th of March, 2023?
He presented the information, but the video clips and all the other information I received from Hanekom afterwards. I also handed all of this over to IPT.
Okay. Now, before we get to the handing over, the follow-up question to Commissioner Baloyi's question, having been informed of this particular case, or any of these cases, did you investigate whether or not there are records within the EMPD of an operation such as, and I say operation in inverted commas, of course, such as what we have just watched on the screens?
It was investigated and we couldn't find anything related to this matter.
Okay. And insofar as the tapes are concerned, the video recordings are concerned, you said you handed them over to IPID. Firstly, to who specifically did you hand them over and when?
Immediately after it became into our possession, it was handed over to Investigator Makagula, but it was also at a later stage copied, but it was copied, I think it's in this year, to Mrs. Masuku as well.
Now you say immediately after you came into possession, perhaps then let's backtrack. When did you come into possession of these tapes?
I don't know the exact, it's in my emails. I will, during lunchtime, I can look at my emails, the exact date I received it, and then I will give the correct date.
Okay, that would assist greatly. Thank you.
Lastly, Commissioner, you say there is no record of this operation. Now, if, and the complaint here is theft copper. So if any copper was removed from the premises, there is no record in the EMPD or in the municipality. Only Brigadier Mkhwanazi and these people in the operation would know what happened to that copper. Is that fair?
Correct, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Commissioner, just to add there, if we do a legal operation, any property, any goods that is confiscated by us or impounded, if it's criminal related, those property is immediately handed over to SAPS and it's entered into the SAP 13, which is an impoundment because it's part of a crime. So whatever we, in a legal operation, would impound, we will hand over to SAPS and it will form part of the SAPS because they are then eventually the investigators into this. But we don't have a impoundment of copper or anything like that. The only time that we will impound things is in terms of our bylaws, which is fruits or vegetables or things that is left next to the road, which is a bylaw related matter.
And officers such as we see on the video clip with those vehicles, would they have the authority to impound? Or you would have a different set of people that would do the removal of property?
They wouldn't have the power to impound. If it is a genuine crime and you catch someone, let's say it's a vehicle found with copper on the back of the vehicle, and during my normal patrols I found this vehicle. The moment I find that vehicle, I will actually impound it and arrest them, and then I'll take the arrested person to SAPS together with the vehicle, and I'll hand it over to SAPS and it will be recorded in their records because it is part of evidence of a crime that was committed. Those property will not come through my pounds as a city. Through my pounds will only be bylaw related goods which was impounded or confiscated in terms of my bylaws. It's the only goods that will come through me. Even stolen vehicles. If I discover and found the stolen vehicle back, if it's after hours, it will come into my pound. But because SAPS pounds will then be closed at night. But the moment the pound open the next morning and it's a stolen vehicle, we will shift the stolen vehicles over to the SAPS pound so that it can be impounded there. Any crime-related evidence is handed over to SAPS and it is impounded by them.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr.
And just to conclude, earlier regarding this very matter, you had an engagement with Commissioner Khumalo, who I think indicated that Merton is outside the jurisdiction of the EMPD. You recall that?
Correct.
Do you know under which jurisdiction or whose jurisdiction it would fall, firstly?
Most probably Meyerton Police, which is in the Midvaal municipal area.
Midvaal.
Meyerton, the municipal areas and the South African Police Service areas and the magisterial areas differ.
Yes.
Since we became metros, it went haywire. Originally, it was city to city allowance, so the magisterial district of Benoni was aligned to the Benoni municipality. But since we became metros, the boundaries is now 3 different boundaries. The courts have got, judicial side has got one set of boundaries, the police stations have a set of boundaries, and the municipality have a different set of boundaries. So I would immediately assume Meyerton falls under Meyerton South African Police Service, which most probably will then be served by Vereniging Court District in that area.
So if we were to pursue this particular case, are you suggesting the logical point to start is to get in contact with the Meyerton SAPS?
I will start with IPID first because they've got the docket.
Okay.
They know more information. And secondly, I will then go to SAPS, Meyerton, or that area. But I will start with IPID because they've got the docket.
Okay. No, thanks for the heads up.